This is Transforming Lives One at a Time. Good afternoon. Happy that you have joined us for today. And of course, on this program, we seek to catapult individuals into walking into your destiny and fulfilling your God-given purpose. Today, we are discussing ways that we can resolve conflicts in the home, the school, and in our community. My guest today is Ms. Melina Allen, and she's a certified mediator for the past 9 years. She's employed in the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. Ms. Allen, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yes. We live in a society now that we need constant intervention as it relates to solving problems or conflicts, whether minor or major. Firstly, tell us, what is a conflict and why is resolving conflicts important?
So conflict, by definition, is a struggle between two or more persons, and it can be for needs, wants, morals, values, things like that. So conflict is also inevitable. So a lot of the times when we think of conflict, we think it's something negative and that we can get away from it. But conflict is something that we cannot get away from. It's a part of life. Conflict is the reason for a lot of things that have changed in life, but we need conflict so that we can have innovation and for things to happen. So it's inevitable and it's not a bad thing.
Wow. Well, that is definitely an eye-opener for me,
Yes,
because we have always been taught from the time you hear the word conflict, it's like, okay, a conflict of interest, or someone is having a conflict, you're always thinking the person is coming with a cutlass or
Correct, that's right.
some kind of weapon to create some kind of injury.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, that's an eye-opener for me personally.
Yes.
How critical is education as it relates to solving problems that may arise, from time to time, whether it be the home, the school, the community, that kind of thing?
So it actually is critical, because just like with other things that would happen in your life, the more you do something, the more you develop skills. That means the better you'll be at it. So if we are able to get the information on how we can deal with conflict correctly and how we can solve our problems, then we'd be able to, if we have those skills, we'd be better able to deal with conflict when it arises. So that is what would make conflict bad, as they would say, right? If it is we are not honing the skills that we need to deal with the conflict, then we will not be able to deal with the conflict effectively, efficiently, and in a healthy way.
So it all ends up a win-win situation.
Well, that's what we're hoping. That's what we hope, that people can learn from the skills that they develop with conflict. Yes.
As it relates to conflict in the home, because of course we know that everything originates, it starts from in the home. How can parents instill the importance of dealing with issues and problems as it relates to siblings, even parents, that kind of?
So the first thing they would need to do is lead by example, because dealing with conflict and a lot of the things that children do are learned skills, right? And learned things from the home. So the first thing would be to be a good example for the child. There are a number of ways that you can deal with it. You can probably have meetings. I remember growing up as a child and my family, we had meetings. So you have meetings to make sure that everybody is given a space where they could have their voice be heard. And if you encourage your children to talk, to have conversations with each other, to be able to express themselves. If, for example, you see your children do something as it relates to conflict resolution, they probably have an issue in sharing something,
yes,
and you notice that they resolved it themselves, you need to give them a bit of praise. You let them know, oh, this was nice. It was really nice that, that you could have not given her some, but you were able to share your toy or your snack with them. If it is we give them that praise, then they'll want to do more, because just like we as adults like praise,
yes,
children love praise. So if it is we practice what we preach, we have meetings, we give them that space that they have the opportunity to talk to each other and work things out, you have meetings, then those are some of the things that parents can do to ensure that they instill healthy conflict resolution styles for their kids.
Right. So it's not like do as I say
And not as I
and
do.
not as I do.
No,
You lead by example.
Correct.
Because sometimes you would have situations where there may be a problem at the school. And the parents, some parents would march down to the school and they already have a mindset. Okay, I didn't want anybody touching my child. And they already went with that kind of mindset.
Correct.
Now, what I think that what happens there is that we have to recognize as parents that our children are always looking at us for the example.
Exactly.
So when a parent marches down into school and is abusive and, you know, that kind of example is not a good example to set at all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. How we deal with things, that would be what they will mirror. So we have to be very careful, because when you have toddlers, you may say something and then 2 days later you hear them saying the exact same thing. So you're not thinking that they heard or that they would say it, but the reality is they are at a stage in their life where everything that you do, they would want to emulate. And as parents, we are the first role models.
Yes.
So if you are a child's first role model, that means that they will model what you do. They may not model everything, but you still have to be careful what you are showing them.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's so important, the roles that parents play, because in those early developmental stages of a child, it's like you're having a sponge.
Correct.
And that child is just soaking up all the information.
Exactly.
So whether you want to use expletives or whatever, that child is soaking it up as this is the way it should be done.
Correct.
How mommy speaks to daddy, that is how the way it is supposed to be done. How you deal with your brother or deal with your sister. So I think it's very, very critical that parents recognize just how important their roles are, first and foremost. I'm talking about before we even get into the schools.
Exactly.
Because you are sending your charges out to the school. The teacher is supposed to be teaching, but half of the time they are spending trying to discipline your child. You know, so we have to look back at all those things. The foundation. How important is that foundation? Just delve in a little bit more.
Yes,
about that.
and the thing about it is, what we need to remember is that we have children coming from different households,
Yes.
different walks of life. So now the teacher has to deal with all of those things. But like you said, having a good foundation can affect how a child is going to go about dealing with different aspects of their life. So it's very important that we lay a steady foundation that they are
Yes.
able to come out as citizens that we could be proud of.
Yes, definitely. Because these little children will now become the future men and women that we are looking for our children to be married to.
Exactly, exactly.
If we look at it that way, I think we'll do a better job as parents, you know.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we cannot speak about conflict resolution without addressing the emotion of anger, coupled with, of course, anger management.
Right.
As well, I would say, well, maybe I am wrong. You are the professional, so you enlighten me. Just walk us through that process. Anger and the emotion of anger coupled with anger management.
Right. So firstly, we have a misconception that anger is a bad thing. Anger is an emotion, just like happiness, just like sadness, it's an emotion. What can make anger unhealthy would be how we deal with it. So we do have healthy and unhealthy anger. Healthy anger would be you being able to acknowledge that you're angry, but still handling the anger in a way that you can come to the person respectfully and let them know, this was not something that I appreciated, and I would appreciate if you don't continue doing it. However, if I come with an outburst,
Yes.
that is unhealthy anger. So the problem is not the emotion, it's how we deal with the emotion, all right? And that is something that we have to learn as well. Just like how we have problem solving skills, we have anger management skills as well. So that is something that we need to learn as well. And in dealing with anger, one of the first things we tell people is know your triggers. So if I know, for example, when I get angry, my heart starts to race or my hands start to sweat, if I am self-aware enough, I'll be able to identify, okay, I'm getting angry. And then if I know I'm getting angry, then I know maybe I need to start to check myself. Okay, I'm getting angry. Maybe I need to take a walk. Maybe I need to take a deep breath, especially in the settings that you're in. Because the reality is, if it is when you're angry, you have an outburst at work, that could mean loss of job.
Correct.
Right? So we have to learn how to control our emotions. So the first step would be to learn your triggers. After you've learned your triggers, then you need to know how to handle your anger. If it means, like I said, take a deep breath. If it means you go to, like, if it's long term, you go to the gym. So you go to the gym to release stress. You know, a lot of people say that some people use it to release anger, but you have to figure out who you are. It's about being self-aware. And as long as you are self-aware enough to know that you're angry, you're self-aware enough to figure out your triggers, then you will be able to handle situations better. So, to reiterate, anger is not bad. It's just how we deal with anger that can either be good or bad.
Right. Well, I am looking at it. What I'm hearing from you is that introspection is needed. So from the time you confront a situation, you have to know yourself. Okay, Dianne, you know that this, from the time your palms start sweating, you know you're getting into a kind of mode that could be detrimental.
Yes.
So let me take a walk. Let me jump into my car, take a drive.
Yes.
Let me probably call a family member and just talk it out, or walk away.
Yes.
But sometimes we talk about these aspects, but in the heat of the moment, especially for example, in the schools.
Right.
In the heat of the moment when something is happening, you know, a lot of other children will come together and, you know, they say, yeah, but why he tell you that? And before you know it, you are now thinking, I am not walking away because I would look as if I'm weak. Let's talk about that. How could we really walk away?
And the thing about it is that is a reality that children face daily in the school system. But one of the things we tell people is the only person whose actions you can affect change on is yours.
Right.
So yes, someone may get you angry, but if you know for a fact that that is not who you want to be, or that is not what you would like, or if for a split second you know that that is the incorrect thing to do, the only person whose actions you can change is yourself.
Yes.
So that is because the reality is sometimes we get angry. If you go to the gas station, somebody skip you in the line. That is something that can be angering. You're in the grocery, somebody skips you in the line. But if you think about it, if every time somebody does something to you, react, and you have an outburst, then we would be in a really lawless society. True. So it takes self-control.
Well, I was just about to talk about that, because sometimes you're on the road and you're driving and you see some kind of driving.
Right.
And you're like, my God, Lord, just help me keep my calm. Because really, I understand road rage. Some persons will stop, or they would drive in front of you and come out with a cutlass swinging and that kind of thing.
So you have to be able, at this point it's about self-preservation. You have to be able to control yourself, because we have to look at, okay, if I do this, what can be the repercussions of my actions? Precisely. So it will take a bit. The thing about anger management and conflict resolution is about practice. Right? After a while, then you would be able to just be able to identify the situation, identify your triggers, and say, okay, let me get out of here. And I understand that in some instances, you are not able to leave, but it's all, you can only affect your action.
Of course.
So that's all we can say. It's difficult, but that's if I am in a situation, I would ask to leave.
Right.
So for example, especially if I'm having a heated discussion with someone, I would not want to say something hurtful. I would say, I understand that we are having this discussion, but can you give me a 5 minutes? It's not that I don't want to have this discussion with you, but at this point, I do not think that it would be effective or fruitful if we continue the conversation, because I'm not in that space to have this conversation at this time. I am not deflecting from the issue. However, I am not in a capacity to continue the conversation at this time. Can we have it in 20 minutes after I've cooled down? And if we would like to hope that the person on the other end would be able to say, you know what, maybe I need a 5 minutes too, and just take a break and then come back to the issue.
Well, that speaks about maturity.
That as well, yes.
And it speaks about a very high level of wisdom. Because if you're realizing that based on what is happening, this thing could get out of control very quickly, it is wisdom, it is prudent for you to step aside, take a drive. I mean, some persons do all kind of things. They say, see me, I just had a quarrel with wifey, I just go in and by the bar and drink something.
Right.
And that's the reality of it.
It is, yes.
Because they just want to relax their mind. And then after, a few hours later, they may come back and say, well, you know, we've both had time to sit down and to think about it. And then sometimes you come and you have a nice, calm, rational conversation.
That's correct.
And it did not escalate. And I think that, well, I know that is where we are right now in society, that a lot of things that we can calmly speak about and speak to the other person, because we have not done that necessary introspection, or because we don't have the level of education about anger and anger management, is the reason why we are having so much problems. So this is something that we all have to deal with, but it's an individual task.
Yes,
individual.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Well, it's no secret that we have seen an escalation of school violence within the past couple of years, even with fights spilling over onto the streets and into the communities, the police getting involved, and so much more. What kind of systems can be put in place to alleviate this kind of behavior? Okay,
so, and I believe that these are some of the things that we already have. There is currently peer mediation. So that is where children are trained to mediate their peers. So for example, if as a peer mediator you see two of your classmates or two children at the school having an issue with each other, you can attempt to help them resolve the issue. Then we have providing a space for dialogue, right? If we have a space in schools where children can come to have conversations with each other about issues they're having. So every day I come to school and you keep calling me names, I don't like you. I don't like it.
Right.
If children are able to speak with each other enough to say, okay, we could go to that dialogue space that they set up for us. We can have a conversation there. I want to let you know how I feel. We need better relationships all around within the schools. We need better. Long ago, when a parent sent a child to school, they sent their child in the care of that teacher.
Yes.
If that teacher calls them and tells them, your child did this, it was never a matter of, I don't believe you.
Right.
Right? Because you expect that in the capacity of a teacher, we can trust what you are saying.
Of course.
And then the matter will be dealt. So you had a good parent-teacher relationship. So we need better parent-teacher relationship. We need better child-teacher relationship, where children are comfortable to speak to the teacher as well. And if we can improve all of these relationships, then it would be easier to address a lot of the issues that we're having. Because if a child feels comfortable to come and speak to a teacher, and they're comfortable to speak to their parent, then we would know a lot more of the issues that are happening, and we can be proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I'm always thinking that in as it relates to the parent and the teacher, there should always be collaboration.
Correct.
But many times you call a PTA meeting, and listen, most of the schools would have 800 students. And sometimes for the PTA meeting, you don't even see as much as 100 parents.
Yes.
And I think this is an area that the parents has to do some introspection, because if it is that you want a good collaboration with the teachers and good collaboration with the principals, because at the end of the day, you want your child to excel, you want your child to succeed. But if you are not reaching out, sometimes just drop into the school. Hi, miss, how are you? I just came to check up on Cheryl or on Harry. You know, I want to find out any areas that you think we can improve on in terms of the homework, in terms of his general deportment, all these kind of things. So we need collaboration, and we have to understand as parents, it is vital. If we want to see the end result, the good end result, we have to put in the work.
Exactly.
But let's just take a short break and we'll be right back. Viewers, we're gonna take a short break. You're viewing Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Are you looking for beautiful and durable flooring for your home or office? Check out D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, Bonaccord, Tobago, opposite the primary school. Our high-quality ceramic and porcelain tiles come in a wide range of colors, patterns, and textures to suit any style and taste. From sleek and modern to classical and traditional, your floors and walls will look great for years to come. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 460-8802 or 639-8281. We've got you covered.
Welcome back, viewers. Transforming Lives One at a Time. You are viewing. Okay. We want to piggyback on a question that I had asked earlier. Why is resolving conflicts important?
So, firstly, I don't know about you, but for me, when a conflict is resolved, I have a peace of mind knowing that we have addressed this issue, it's over with.
Yes.
In the workplace, it can make work easier. It can make you more productive, because if I'm in a space and I'm not comfortable because I'm in conflict with my co-workers or my manager, it's going to be difficult for me to get off that bed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to come there. So resolving conflicts can make things easier. It can also even bring innovation, because like I said, conflict is not always bad. For example, we could have a meeting and we're deciding what color t-shirt to wear. You say red, I say green, that's a conflict.
Yes.
However, how we handle it is, I could ask, but why not green? I like green, that's my favorite color.
Right.
You say, okay, yes, but we're going on TV. If we're going on TV, that's not going to go well with the background, that kind of thing. Then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So in instances like that, it helps to get a solution to something that could be detrimental in the future.
Right.
And I'm giving a small example, but
yes,
this is how things happen. This is how change happens in the world. But when people in conflict, not bad conflict, but healthy conflict, then we're able to get to that point where we could say, okay, we'll go it this way, not that way.
Right.
So it can make for innovation, and it can make life easier. It can improve communication. It can build trust, because if we have a conflict and we don't resolve it, I am not going to be able to trust you.
True.
Because I have a preconceived notion of who you are based on the conflict we would have had before. So for example, if we are co-workers and we have a good relationship and you step on my foot, I would assume that it was a mistake because we have a good relationship.
Right.
But if we don't have a good relationship and you step on my foot, I would automatically assume you did it on purpose. And there's a possibility you didn't. But if we resolve the conflicts that would have happened in the past, then I would know, okay, no, she didn't do it on purpose, because even though we have issues, we still talk it out. So there's no bad blood.
Yes.
So those are some of the reasons why resolving conflict is important.
And that communication, it's because, as you rightfully said, that peace of mind. Because for me personally, whenever I have something that is bothering, listen, it's the most uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes you wake up in the night
you're dreaming
like,
it.
I'm telling you.
Yes.
And you just want to get it right. Because I don't want, I always tell my friends, I said, listen, I don't want anything to disturb my peace of mind.
Exactly. Life is already hard. You don't need to make it harder. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
So that I can attest to that, definitely.
Yes.
I know we spoke about how should persons approach conflict, and how do they identify the root of the conflict and their way of expressing their needs and wants effectively?
So firstly, we need to identify that there is a conflict, because a lot of people are in conflict and they're not even aware.
Wow.
Right? So if we don't know there's a problem, we can't fix it.
Okay.
So the first step will be to identify that there is a conflict. Then the second step should be to identify what the root cause of that conflict is. In our profession, one of the things we have learned is sometimes you may have a conflict about one thing, and when you start having that conversation, you realize that that is not why we're here. We are here because of, we call it underlying issues.
Right.
Right? So something would have happened in the past, it was not addressed, and now we're here because something else has happened, and this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay. So we're here for this, but really and truly there are other underlying issues. So we need to identify the root cause of the issue. We need to do some introspection, put things in perspective. So you need to sit down, take some time and identify, okay, so we have a conflict. What are my needs and wants in this conflict?
Right.
And then we need to think about the other person and think about what are their needs and wants in this conflict. And then we can put it in perspective. When you put it in perspective, at that point you tend to see, okay, if it is he wants this and I want this, then you start to brainstorm on ways that we could come up with a solution, right? And another thing that is really important in conflict resolution and solving conflict is listening. And I like to tell clients, there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing, you can do that subconsciously. I can hear someone knock on the door. It was not my intention to hear it, but I heard it. However, if I'm listening, that means I am putting things in perspective. I'm paying attention to what the person is saying. I am going to be empathetic about what they're saying. So listening and not hearing. We need to listen to what others are saying and be empathetic. Empathy is one of the things that can determine how successful conflict resolution is, because if I can understand your perspective, I could understand where you are coming from, then it means that it can affect how or what I am willing to forego. So for example, if you come to me and you say, I really want this bottle because I'm thirsty. It's my bottle. Right. I am not thirsty. You are. So if it is I am empathetic, I would be like, okay, I'm not thirsty. I probably have another bottle in the fridge, so I could give it to you. Okay. Right? So if we put ourselves in the other person's position, if I was in this position and I was thirsty, I would hope somebody would give me water. Right? If we are like that, then it can make it easier to resolve conflict. And in resolving conflict as well, we're already in conflict, so you don't want to blame. So you use I statements. Okay. For example, I feel overwhelmed when you are late for me. It's better than, why are you always late? Okay. So you take the blame away from the person, so the person no longer has to feel like I have to defend myself. Right? And you put it in perspective for the person, because if you come to the person and you say, why are you always late for me? They're already ready to mirror your aggression. Course. However, if you say, I feel overwhelmed when you are late for me, then they realize, oh, you have an emotion about it, or you're not comfortable with it, so you remove that blame from the person. So we encourage I statements. And it's also important to reframe. People have misconceptions of what other people say. So I can say something to you and you can hear something else. So reframing and repeating is a good way to make sure that I am hearing what you are saying.
Okay.
So if, for example, you say something and I reframe it, it gives you the opportunity to clarify.
Correct.
So those are some of the ways that you can ensure that you effectively resolve a conflict.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, this is definitely an eye-opener, because you're talking about underlying issues. And what ran through my mind is that many times we go to a mediator to deal with a certain matter, and when you really check it and you have the deeper conversation, you realize that there was a problem before.
Exactly.
So many times there may be a problem, but sometimes it's often swept under the carpet as, okay, well, I'm not going to make this an issue. I'm not going to make this an issue. And before you know it, by the time you raise up the carpet, you are amazed at how, listen.
And sometimes it's really simple things that could have been resolved before.
Yes.
And that is another reason why resolving a conflict is important. Because if we continue to sweep things under the rug, that means that that person is holding in a lot of emotions. So then when it reaches to that point where they can't hold it in anymore, at that point their actions can be detrimental.
Yes.
Because now you're so angry, because it's anger built on anger, that you're not only addressing the issue that is in front of you and not seeing how minuscule it is,
wow,
but you're looking at everything. Because if you listen to people talk, sometimes you're always doing this and you're always doing that. So it's like it wasn't addressed in the past. So because it's not addressed in the past, that means it now adds on to this current issue.
Wow.
That may not even be that big a deal.
Wow,
Yes.
This is really a wonderful conversation. A couple of days ago, I was speaking with a young lady that reached out to me, and she was saying that she did not have a good relationship with her parents at all. And I was really encouraging her. I said, listen, life is so volatile. I mean, 1 minute you hear good and everything is going fine, yes, and next minute you hear that the person is in a hospital bed hooked up to machines and stuff. I said, it is very, very important. I said, in spite of whatever challenges you all may have, I encouraged her to go and sit and have a conversation, because many times it's because of those, as you rightfully said, so many things being swept under the carpet, that it now come to this such a huge deal that it seems almost impossible to treat with. So how important is really getting to the root cause?
It is important, because if we are not able to identify the root cause, then that means that we may deal with this issue, but we still have the root cause that has not been addressed. So if that is not addressed, like I would have said before, if I deal with one thing but I don't deal with something else, I might still hold that grudge for that old thing. So we address this one, but we have 10 that we haven't addressed. If you do something to me, I may still feel as though, but you're doing it again.
Right.
Because this was not addressed. So it is very important that we address everything to make sure that we can start on a clean slate.
Yes.
Because the reality is, a lot of the times, because we have a misconception of what someone may mean, they may not have even meant that. However, having a conversation, you might clarify some things really easy. Like, you know that time when you shout at me, I shout at you?
Right.
That time it wasn't even meant to hurt your feelings,
yes,
right? So that would have been an easy fix. However, we didn't address it, and now here we are, 10 steps later,
wow,
holding on to grudges that people probably... Because what we need to remember too is everybody's different.
truly.
So I would speak, if I am speaking, someone may find I speak aggressively, but someone else may find I'm not aggressive.
Right.
So we have to be open to differences in who persons are. And as long as we're open to that and we're willing to have conversations, then we should be in a better place.
Let's talk a little bit about forgiveness, because conflict and conflict resolution, tell us how important and what part does forgiveness play in all of this?
Well, for you to be able to move past some of the things, it's going to require some forgiveness. And forgiveness is not always easy, especially if depending on what needs to be forgiven. But forgiveness is more of a personal process. And some people have difficulty based on what would have happened to them forgiving. At that point, I would recommend, if it's difficult for you, to seek help, because there is help out here. So there's counseling. Counseling can help you go through whatever trauma you'd have gone through, that you are able to now forgive the person. Because not everything is going to be easy to forgive.
Truly.
Right? So we have to be open to know that I need to forgive this person. However, at this point, I cannot. And the thing about it is, with conflict resolution, if it is you can't at that point, that is something you can say. Communication is the key.
Yes.
So if I can say, I understand what you're saying, I understand that you're sorry, but at this point, I cannot accept it because I need to work on me a bit and it still hurts, but I need some time. So if you could give me some time, we could probably come back to the conversation in a few months. But as of now, I appreciate that you have apologized, but I don't know that I can forgive you at this point. But if we can have conversations like that and be open about how we feel and be willing to accept that sometimes we may need help other than we can give ourselves. And I know a lot of people say, well, I have my friend, they could help me.
Yes.
But your friend is not a professional.
Of course.
So we may need professional help. Counselors are able to give you coping mechanisms. They're able to guide you on the process. Some people don't even know the process of grief.
Right.
So if it is you have a counselor can tell you, well, what you are feeling is natural. Because a lot of the times as well, some people feel as though the emotions they feel is not a normal thing. So they may not even want to voice it. So when you go to counseling, you have a space where you can express comfortably, and then is when you realize, I am as normal as everybody else is.
Why do we sometimes think that or feel that I could handle this on my own? And many times we have situations, even as it relates to relationships, and we always figure I could handle this, I don't need help.
Yes.
What causes that?
Well, it's personality to some extent, because some people, it's personality. It can be affected by the relationship you've had with others. If you feel as though people are not for you, then you may feel as though, you know what, I need to keep this to myself and I need to sort it out myself. If you grow up, it has a lot to do with family, upbringing. If all your life you're doing this alone,
yes,
then you figured out everything else, so you feel as though you could figure this out.
Of course.
So that is where you'll have to do some introspection, because yes, you may be able to figure it out, but did you figure it out effectively? And what you figured out, is it the best thing for you?
Right.
So getting that support and having people that you can trust is important, and people need to realize that this life is not something that we can go alone.
True.
You need a support system.
I always say no man is an island.
Exactly.
We all need each other.
Exactly.
We need each other.
Yes.
I want to jump back into the schools.
Right.
I'm aware that there are guidance counselors within the school system. How does proper counseling play a pivotal role in the rehabilitation of the minds of our students to encourage them to handle their misunderstandings in a better way?
Right. So when we were growing up, we were always told, you're going to school to learn, that's all you have to do. Yes. And parents believe that that's all that was going on. Children didn't have a lot going on in their lives. But the reality is, just like we have issues and we have problems, children have problems as well.
Correct.
The difference is that we would have learned over time, and now we can deal with it. But we have these young minds that are literally going through life as we speak. So the experiences are happening to them for probably the first time. They're not able to handle it well, or they don't even know how to handle it. Yes. Because we probably handled it in the past, but they now handle it for the first time. So equipping them with that counseling can be effective, because now you have somebody that you can trust, that you can talk to, that's an adult, that can guide you because they have the skills, the skill set, the mechanisms, the tools to help you with your stress, to help you with conflict, with all of those things that you're going through at school. They can give you the tools, right? It's also important to, as a counselor, they will have the skill set to be able to get the information from the children that they would be able to help the children.
Right.
Because it's a matter of being a support system. Guidance counselors are a part of a child's support system.
Of course.
Right? And if they can give them the skill set on how to deal with things, then that could be effective for them, because as adults we should be getting counseling as well, because it's important. So if we need it, imagine children who are now going through life, they've now started life, they don't know if what they're doing right or wrong, and no, they have to figure this out on their own. But if we could give them that help, it can make life a bit easier for them.
Of course.
And they have that, there's an additional support system for them. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we need support. We need to support each other, as you rightfully use that word, empathy. And I am thinking of the words kindness, appreciation, consideration, love. These kind of words, these core values. I think the problem is because we have gone away from some of our core values. It's why we are experiencing so many problems now. Yes. Because even as we are talking about driving on the road, you showing consideration for someone else. You see a senior citizen trying to navigate a drive or something like that, or you see them coming out of the grocery and you just, just a kind consideration. Yes. I was looking at a video some time ago, and this senior citizen was trying to cross the road with a walker, and these two gentlemen came out of their cars. One took the walker and one lifted her and took her, and I was like, oh my gosh, just a kind word, just a kind gesture. And if we are to do this and really do it with the kind of heart that we are supposed to, we will definitely have a transformed society. Exactly. But at this time, we're going to take another break, and we will be right back. You're viewing Transforming Lives One at a Time. Stay with us.
Are you looking for beautiful and durable flooring for your home or office? Check out D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, Bonacord, Tobago, opposite the primary school. Our high-quality ceramic and porcelain tiles come in a wide range of colors, patterns, and textures to suit any style and taste. From sleek and modern to classical and traditional, your floors and walls will look great for years to come. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 460-8802 or 639-8281. We've got you covered.
Welcome back to Transforming Lives One at a Time. Today we are speaking about resolving conflicts. My guest today, Miss Melina Allen, and she's a certified mediator and is employed in the Tobago House of Assembly. Miss Allen, let us know, what is mediation? Because we've heard the word different times, and some persons, they would be like, what exactly is mediation?
So mediation in relation to the profession is an alternative to litigation. So you have any issue that is non-criminal, you can bring it to mediation and we can help you resolve it. We are not judges in that capacity. We are, long ago we had where anytime family members have an issue, you go to an elder.
Yes.
Right. So this is the modern day version of it.
Okay.
So we have been trained, we are certified by the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
And only after you are certified, then you can practice legally to be a mediator. So we are there to help you come up with solutions. We are not there to tell you what to do.
Okay.
Because we are not there to judge you. So when you come to a mediation, it's not about proving to me that you're right.
All right.
It's about we're having a discussion, and we are there just to navigate to provide a healthy space for persons to resolve their conflict. Because the reality is you can't resolve your conflict on your own, but sometimes we have difficulty conversing with each other one-on-one. So it's just an opportunity for you to have a space where you can have a healthy conversation. And mediators are supposed to be unbiased. So we are trained to be unbiased, right? We are also supposed to be neutral.
Okay.
So we are not supposed to conduct sessions with persons that we know, because that can lead to bias.
Right. Or conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. So as long as the parties are persons that we don't know, then we can have a conversation with them. It is legally binding as well. So we are just there to help persons come up with a formal agreement.
Okay.
Because we have agreements by word of mouth, but we have something formal where people
black and white.
Yes, yes.
So there is help for the persons who may be listening, viewing right now, and they have this situation and they may feel, listen, I think I can handle this on my own. And I would like to say to you that there is help. Even if you think you can handle it on your own, sometimes we need a third-party intervention. It is wisdom. So you have no excuse. There is help, and I would encourage you to seek help so that you can get your matters resolved in the best possible way and in a most professional manner. What are some of the ways persons can adopt in an effort to solve matters peacefully before it even reaches mediation or even the courts?
So, like I would have said before, because there's a theme, right?
Yes.
The theme is empathy. Be empathetic about each other. Listen, actively listen. We need to remember that sometimes when people talk, you may zone out, but to actively listen to what the person is saying, and that added with the empathy, then that should be a start for you to be able to resolve conflicts peacefully. Have regular check-ins. If, for example, just like how we'll have monthly meetings at our workplace to make sure that everything functions well for the organization, having monthly meetings for family, even in small families, it can help to address issues and to be proactive and not reactive. Communicating well with each other and effectively, because communicating is one thing, but effectively communicating is another. You have to be able to express yourself in a way that the other person understands. And just like we would in mediation have a space where you can have a conversation, you might have a talking stick, create that space where people can express themselves openly. And a lot of times people may have the fear, I don't want to have this conversation because I feel it could cause problems. But if we give them that space where we say, okay, I know this is a difficult topic for us to talk about, but this is a space, is an open space. You can say how you feel. You don't have to disrespect, but you can be open about how you feel about something. And if you are able to speak and have persons speak openly about issues, then that can help to resolve matters as well.
I am looking at where you spoke about having meetings, family meetings, and I'm thinking that many times you hear we're having a family meeting is when someone would have passed. At that point is where the family will now come together, and a lot of times we have conflicts there.
Exactly.
That's a whole
exactly.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yes.
But I'm thinking if we could have more frequent family meetings.
Yes.
Let's say we have monthly family meetings.
Yes.
So whatever would have transpired for that month, something may have happened at work that you want to discuss with your family on the best way forward, the best approach, all in an effort to resolve conflicts before it escalates.
Exactly.
Because that is what we want to do. Because as you said, conflict is not a bad word,
No,
because
it's
you will
not.
always have conflicts.
Yes.
But we want to ensure that it doesn't escalate to the point that the police are called in.
Yes.
Or a life is lost.
Exactly.
And that is really critical. So even
Yes.
at the workplace, monthly meetings, or they might have meetings, let's say 4 times, quarterly meetings. Or there may be a situation that comes up that they have to have an emergency meeting. So even as it relates to the home, the family, at the workplace, in the communities, where they will have like community councils. But the thing about that, the people are not going out to these meetings.
Well, yes, but the thing about conflict and relationship, there are different levels to it. In terms of my relationship with the person at a store is not a relationship that I have with my family.
Correct.
So if you realize, when you said family, then we have work, then we have community.
Yes.
Right? They have meetings in the families when issues arise. They have meetings with work when work arise. But community, even though you're part of it, it's not, for some people, it's not important.
Yes.
So if they don't place importance on it, then they may not see the need to go to the meeting. They may have issues, but unless those issues are dire, they may think, well, that's not important for me to attend.
Right.
But in a family meeting, someone dies or it's about estate or anything like that,
Yes.
they would be a part of that, because that is something that they would be interested in, and it may involve persons that they loved. So because of that, they may be more keen to go to those meetings.
Right.
But we need to be a more proactive society and less reactive. So if we could have meetings, I remember being a child and I wanted to have a discussion with my parents.
Yes.
And I wrote them a little note and I said, can we have a meeting?
Oh,
Right?
wow.
So if, and they obliged.
Yes.
So if we can get children to adopt those kinds of values,
Yes.
then they will be more willing to talk and not be as reactive and ready to be as aggressive, because they'll be able to know how to deal with conversations.
Yes.
Yes, so that is important as well. Yes.
Yes, that is very critical. Well, I know we just have a few minutes as we begin to wrap up. So I want to take your closing remarks now. And of course, I would want you to speak to someone today who is having difficulty with anger management and resolving conflicts. Speak to that person
So
today.
firstly, I'd like to let them know that it is normal to experience anger. It is normal for conflict to occur. So that's the first thing that they need to remember. When addressing these situations, take a breath and be empathetic with the other person and put yourself in that other person's position, and then it can give you some perspective on how to handle the situation. Listen actively, separate the person from the problem. Address the problem and not the persons involved. So we need to always keep that at the top of the list, as well as do not blame, but use I statements to ensure that we do not escalate, but de-escalate by not making that person feel attacked.
Yeah, but as you talk about that, the I statements, I've heard it already, but many times in the heat of the moment, as I
yes.
realize we have a couple more minutes.
Yes.
In the heat of the moment, the I statement should be, sometimes the I statement goes out of the window, you know.
That's why you have to take the breath. You take in the breath, you
Right.
think a bit, and you say, because what we also need to remember is what we say we can't take back.
Right.
So even though I apologize, it's already been said. It's already caused the harm and damage. So because of that, we don't want to be in a position where that person has to hold on to that thing that you would have said in the past, even though you have apologized and they've said, I've forgiven you. However, they're going to remember it.
Of course.
Right? And it's going, it's going to be like, that's how you really feel about me. So we want to prevent further damage by breathing. So we're going to breathe, and then we're
I like how
going
you
to...
said that. Just take a breath.
Yes. So you take that breath, and you think. Put yourself in that person's shoes. If I say this to myself, how would I feel?
Right.
Because what you want for yourself, you shouldn't want for others. So if it is we put ourselves in other people's position a lot more, it can help us to see. Sometimes if after something has been done and you think about what has happened, you think they handled that really well, because I would not have done that. I'd have probably done worse. So if it is you are thinking that you don't like it or you would probably do worse, then maybe you should probably rethink what you're about to say. Especially if it's a relationship you want to save. Because like I said earlier, we have levels to relationships. So if I go to a store and I get bad service, I could walk away.
Correct.
I could just keep my money in my pocket and I can leave. So in a situation like that, because the relationship is not a close relationship you have with the store owner, whatever, you might be quicker to walk away from it, right? However, in a relationship with a family member, you may not be able to walk away from the issue. You have to deal with it.
Of course.
So the way we handle relationships should affect the relationship that we're in, or the relationship that we're trying to save, because it should be about saving relationships.
Right.
So we have to be careful. I mean, we need to put ourselves in that person's position, especially if it's family.
Of course.
You have to live with them after.
Yeah.
So.
And what just came to me is loving your neighbor as yourself, because how you treat yourself, that's how you're supposed to treat your neighbor. So if we really go back, as I indicated earlier, if we go back to the core values, we would be in a much better position in our family life, as it relates to our schools, in our communities, in our churches, and of course it will spill over to the nation. So I want to thank you so much again, Ms. Melina Allen. Oh my gosh, this is a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedule to be here with us on Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Thank you for
folks. Well, that's where we have to leave it for today. I tell you, it has been a mouthful of information. All right, so Transforming Lives One at a Time is every Saturday afternoon from 5:30 p.m. on the Tobago Inspirational Network, and of course on my Facebook page and YouTube channel, Transforming Lives One at a Time. So this is where we're gonna leave you, but of course, I always have to remind you that transformation is an internal shift that brings you into alignment with your highest potential. Hey, we've got this. See you next time.